Hello and welcome to Third Opinion. I'm Nadine Marie, and joining us today is Barrister Hamid Bashani. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. So we have a very important issue to discuss today regarding freedom of press, and very specifically a senior journalist by the name of Hamid Mir. But before we get into discussing that, can you give us a brief background on the situation of freedom of press in Pakistan? Just give us a little segue.
Well, that's very important question, and it's actually very painful to talk about freedom of press and freedom of expression in that country. To give you just a little bit idea, I will tell you that most of the history of Pakistan is the history of dictatorship, military takeover, suppressions, and violation of human rights. Most of the time, for last 60 years, you can say at almost like 50 years, there was no freedom of expression. There was no respect for fundamental rights, and there was martial laws and martial laws and martial laws. So when there was not martial laws, even at that time, the military dictators, they would dictate from the behind the barracks to the politicians, to the governments who were running under their actually umbrella. So it's very, very recent thing that they started this kind of respect to the freedom of expression and freedom of press. It's like not even 10 years. So it's something very new. So what happened that establishment, the military, civil bureaucracy, they are used to silence. They don't want to hear something. They are not used to any criticism. They don't want people to speak. So what happened when this freedom came, so people started talking about it at TV, at in newspapers, things like that. So it was kind of shock for them, very, very shocking thing that what the people they are criticizing us, especially the military, which was the most powerful and influential institution in their country, especially the intelligence agencies, and they were so used to dictate the people, to silence them and things like that. So during this 10 years, there were many, many journalists who were attacked by different groups. Actually, if you look at it closely, the journalist in Pakistan, in the press, it is under attack from different sections. First of all, it's under attack by the militants, the terrorism, Afghan question, things like that. Then they are under attack by the different militant sections, paramilitaries, the private groups, and then they are under attack by the fundamentalist forces, religious forces. Then they are under attack by some political groups with their own interest in different cities, right? And on top of that, then this military thing and this intelligence agencies thing is coming on top of everything. So what happened in this specific case, this journalist, he was writing a lot against disappearances in Pakistan. Disappearances is a very common word in that politics, because what's happening there in one part of that country for last a couple of years, the political workers, they disappear, and then you find their dead bodies on the roads. Wow. So obviously this is a conflict situation where there are different groups, they have different opinions. Some of them, they would say that this is the military who is responsible for these disappearances, and actually there were many cases going on in the courts. There was a lot of discussion in the press that maybe it's these military agencies, secret agencies who are involved. Some would say it's the militant terrorist also, so it's a difference of opinion. But this person, he was writing a lot about those disappearances. And that territory is called Balochistan, where people, they are fighting for separation or independence, or what they call it, freedom. So this is a very serious issue. Recently, he spoke in a conference in Balochistan, in that part of the country, where he was actually pinpointing these kind of intelligence agencies were responsible for these kind of disappearances. So after that, he started receiving threats from unknown people, saying that, whatever kind of different kind of threats and tactics.
To silence him, obviously.
Yes. So that was the background.
Okay. So Why didn't GOTV wait for Hamid Mir to regain consciousness before and make a statement before going after him?
Actually, as far as I know, they did. I was actually reading one article on one of the newspaper, the News International, in which they explained this whole thing, what happened. And they said that when his brother, this Hamid Mir brother, his name is Amir Mir, he came to that place and he told them that we have these proofs, we have videos, we have emails, we have his writings saying that I am under threat, and if something happens to me, then the ISI would be responsible for that.
Wow.
He also emailed to their management that if something happens, this is the person who would be responsible. So his brother told to and as you know, he was working with this Geo News TV.
Right.
So his brother told them that because he was working with you, so it's your responsibility to bring up the matter, and if you are not bringing up, then I'm going to go to the other TV stations and there we will talk about it. So they took hours and hours to make this decision, and when it was clear that if they wouldn't break the news, then somebody else would be breaking the news.
Right.
So at that point they did that. So it was not just all of a sudden.
So he did inform top management about these threats and who he
Yes.
thought was behind them.
Yes, he sent the email and he nominated the chief of the intelligence agency,
Wow.
which is run by the military of Pakistan. And obviously it was very clear message from him,
Right.
which
Well,
was sitting with the management and also with his brother.
So will any of those emails be made public?
Yes, they have to, because now there is a Judicial Commission. You know, the Prime Minister of Pakistan has announced a investigative commission of 3 judges.
Okay.
So they have to present everything, all kind of proof, to see how the things are going.
Now, was Hamid the only person from Geo TV who was receiving these threats? Were there others, or?
No, as I said, you see, the situation of journalists in that country is very disturbing. So they are under attack, and that is one of those countries which we consider one of the most dangerous places for the journalists. So a couple of weeks ago, there was another journalist belonged to another media group was killed in the city of Lahore. And then there was a very, very senior journalist, Imtiaz Alam. He received the threats. He doesn't belong to this group, but that's another he received. In these groups, there are many, many journalists also who are receiving these threats. He's not the only person.
Okay.
But he is the most high profile, and his show at TV and his writing in a very big newspaper. He writes regular columns. So
Right.
he's a kind of
Very well-known public
yes,
figure.
yeah.
In your opinion, do you think it was unfair to accuse the ISI chief without any actual solid evidence?
Actually, many people say that, but solid evidence, if we look at, as a lawyer, if I look at that, then if a person who is the party to this kind of conflict and he is nominating a suspect, then you have no option. There is nothing fair or unfair, because if
Right.
I am under attack, so first question the police will ask me, who is the suspect?
Right.
That's where they will get a clue and they will start investigating.
Right.
So if they wouldn't nominate a person who was nominated in the emails, who was nominated in his letters, and he was nominated during his discussion with his friends, then there is no point to not nominate him. I don't think there is anything unfair about that.
Right. Now, what do you think will happen if the ISI chief's involvement proves to be, well, that there was no involvement? What if they can't prove anything?
Well, it's very possible. It's very, very possible in that country. I can tell you why. Because the groups and the pressure groups and the pressure is too high. They can change anything. They can change evidence. They can change people's mind. They can even change the statement. So what
It's
I
very
think,
corrupt is what you're
yeah,
saying.
you know, they can even pressurize this person himself to change his statement, saying that no, I never said that,
Right.
and I am suspecting that that can happen.
Right.
So this is the situation.
Do you think it was, sorry, before we get on there, there's so much to discuss, but we have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, well, we're back again here with barrister Hamid Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for kind of elucidating what's going on in Pakistan right now, especially with this particular situation. Do you think it was fair to flash repeatedly that photo of the ISI chief on Geo TV? Was that right?
Well, on TV, you don't just go and say something. You always have to show the picture, right? If you're talking about a person, this is a old journalist tradition that you show the picture.
Right.
You show the scene, you show the people. So they were talking about a specific person, so there is no point to not show his picture.
Right.
And there is nothing, I think, against him. This is something which was coming from the victim.
Right.
Because victim brother clearly nominated him, so why they wouldn't show his picture?
And in your opinion, why do you think that there is so much coverage of this issue? Why are people so interested in this particular case?
There are two reasons. First of all, as I said before, that the victim is very high profile journalist, and many people like him because he has been in media for so many years.
Right.
And he is running one of the top prime time TV show. Secondly, the party he blamed, the nominated, is very high profile in a sense that nobody would think even couple of years before that the military or paramilitary or intelligence agencies could be nominated like this in any.
Right.
People would die in silence, but they wouldn't dare to nominate because that wouldn't even affect you. That could go even behind you to your families and communities. So when it came like this, and when especially this thing, you see, this is very complex, that the TV is showing the face of the most powerful intelligence agency's boss.
Right.
How dare the TV is doing that in a country where they have been ruling over this, over the people, over the media, everything. So this is something fascinating for the people. So they are coming up with their own opinion. Some of them obviously in favor, and a few of them against it. And who are against it? The people who wants the one who want to keep the situation like 10 years before. No fundamental rights, no freedom of expression, no civil liberties, and no justice. So you suffer in silence, nobody will speak, powerful will do what they want to do.
Right.
So that kind of situation actually make people interesting in that sense.
Did Geo TV take version of ISI?
If yes, because when they came up with their statement, it was all over. It was there are many TV channels. As I told you, when this thing was opened, then there are hundreds of TV channels running around.
Right.
So their version came, and is not only their version came, they asked Ministry of Interior to launch a complaint against this TV channel. And this TV channel, they have the licensing thing and licensing bodies, so they asked them to cancel their license. And they asked them to stop their channel wherever they can do, and they did. They stopped there in some places which they call cantonments, especially the areas where the military population and people like that are living.
Right.
And this is very unfortunate that without any proceeding, without any legal action, without any investigation, they just order to shut it down.
To silence them.
Which they cannot obviously continue, so they are trying to take it back.
Right.
But at least they tried their best to stop it.
Now, did ISI or ISPR complain to Geo for overrunning those pictures?
I am not sure if they contacted to Geo directly, but they contacted to the governing body who is governing these media and TV stations, and they asked them to shut it down. And they also came up with the statement that this is so unfortunate that they are criticizing a institution which is considered to be a national institution.
Right.
And this is very interesting, where I was talking to the Committee for the Protection of Journalists, and I was talking about this thing, that what they say, they are trying to give the message that the military and the country is the same thing. And they are trying to give the impression that nobody else exists.
Right.
We are the country, we are the right people, and everybody else should do what we want.
or be quiet.
So when you criticize them, they say, how come you criticize us? That means you're criticizing the country, and that means you're against this country, and that means you're a traitor.
Right.
So you shut up. So that's how they talk. I was on a talk show with the military man, ex-military man yesterday, and he was talking. He was saying that we are going to court-martial them. Can you court-martial the civilians?
Wow.
We have the courts, we have the judicial system, we have the civilian justice system working there, but they are still talking about these kind of issues as dictators, and they do not want to listen anybody. So in that kind of situation, obviously, I was really, really surprised.
Right. Now, you were talking about how they were asking Geo TV basically trying to silence them.
Yeah.
Was there any consequence for the ISI chief? Was he asked to resign?
Well, that would be a very, very big wish if anybody like that would resign.
Right.
But if there is an allegation like this, and allegation is coming from very, very credible source like this, then I think in the West, anybody will resign. Nobody will stick with their post like this.
No.
If somebody will blame you like this, either you have to clear your position immediately or you have to do something. But in that country, there is no tradition like this to resign or something like this. So I believe it's what I was telling you before, and many human rights group and human rights activists, they have the same opinion, that they are going to go to this victim and they are going to ask him to change the statement. Yeah. And then what they are going to do, they are going to say that, okay, because he never said that, therefore this TV channel should be shut down. So that would be an attack on the freedom of expression, on media, and you can say on the rights. That's what they are going to do. That's why many people, they fear that this is going to happen, and they are going to use this under this pretext. They are going to do what they wanted to do for so long.
Right.
And this is not the first time that they attacked to this TV station. It happened many times before. It's like 2-3 times before. During General Pervez Musharraf, he was another dictator. He tried to shut it down, even though he was the person who actually opened the media.
Right.
But you see, they just let them go to some extent, and when they think that that is the end, and they just try to pull them back. So this is the situation.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. So just before we close things up here, I mean, where do you think this situation is going? What do you think is going to be the future for freedom of expression in Pakistan?
You see, I think that there is a very, very big lobby and a powerful segment of society who is willing to defend this space for the media, space for the freedom of expression, and space for civil liberties, whatever they have in front of terrorism and all that problems. So because of that, I have hope that they cannot just go and wind it up, because there is a very, very powerful resistance from the people. They would face a lot of resistance. But the problem is, what they can do, they can divide and rule situation, that they can create division within media and then victimize one, and then one by one they will do if this is the situation. But I believe that why they are after Geo? Why? The question is. Because of their track record, they challenged almost all the dictators in history. They face all kind of, limits and things like that, but they never actually went out of the business.
Right.
So they become so powerful that they can resist. They can resist any government, and they know that. So that is something which is not acceptable for a special segment of bureaucracy, civil as well as military, to see someone sitting there who is so powerful and who is in position to protect the people. Why they are so much against Geo? Because that is talking about peace. I think the biggest point was that the Geo TV was trying to promote peace with India. they have created common kind of forums with their print media, which they called Aman Ki Asha, for the peace. And they have been working on that for a long time, and actually they made a lot of progress toward peace, democracy in that country and with the neighbors. And that is very, very challenging and disturbing for some segments of the military as well as civil bureaucracy. They do not want peace with their neighbors. They don't have peace with any of their neighbors. Actually, they are at odds with all of their neighbors everywhere,
Right.
Afghanistan, India. So, why? Because it has become their business to disturb the peace, to be in the business of arm race and things like that. So, people who are trying to promote peace, they don't like them. So, that was the one thing against Geo. Secondly, obviously it has become a powerful media outlet which is creating a kind of challenge for them. For example, what they have done is not a small thing.
Right.
That they have really nominated and they have shown the face of the
ISIG.
powerful person on their
Yeah.
media. So that's why this is something they cannot actually tolerate.
Right. So, do you think that this situation has encouraged more journalists, young journalists possibly out there, or do you think it's actually discouraging them, the situation with Hamid Mir?
I
what he's
think
going through?
for a young journalist, yes, it is encouraging. They are very excited, they are very hopeful, they are looking at the future and they think that things can go in positive direction. There is no doubt about that. But because of this, there is a big division also within media. And you know, media, they have their own kind of business interest and clashes. So because of that, they are creating, that's one thing, they are taking advantage of the situation. And then again, the establishment, military or otherwise, they are trying to create division too, so they can deal with them one by one. And I think this is why it's not very disappointing that this situation is going out of control at all, but I think this is disappointing in a sense that in this century, at this time, they try to attack a media outlet like this and ask them to shut down. This is, I think, a very, very disappointing situation. And it should not be tolerated in any democracy. Democracies are all about freedom. And media is playing a communication role between the government and between the people and between different segments of the society.
Right.
So if you want to shut them down and you want to still run the democracy, that means that would be a kind of fake democracy.
Yeah.
And it would end up nowhere. And that's what's happening in Pakistan for last 60 years. You know, the people are in a circle. Martial law, then democracy, and back to martial law and democracy, and all these media outlets and newspapers, they are playing their own little role in that situation. So I believe that this time the resistance is so strong within the country as and also out of the country. I have seen Amnesty International, different human rights group, I believe is Human Rights Watch, and different small groups, they have issued the statement. They came out with a very, very strong statement in support of Geo and against the dictatorship, saying that it would not be acceptable for anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. So, are there any other thoughts that you can just leave us with on the situation? Just anything to conclude?
I think that what I would like to actually share with my people who are watching this, that there should be a united voice for this resistance. For everybody, people who are journalists, who are lawyers, who are political activists, human rights activists, they should keep an eye on this situation like this. And any voice from anywhere, from the Western countries, from Canada, from politicians, from other institutions would be very, very encouraging. And hopefully it will come up if they do not stop this, what they are doing.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. It's always enlightening to hear your views, and we have hope for the future of freedom of expression. We're very lucky to say that we have that here. So at Third Opinion, I'm Nadine Marie, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.